Breaking news now coming in from Ottawa. The Prime Minister and his wife, Sophie Grégoire Trudeau, have released a statement announcing they have made the decision to separate after 18 years of marriage.
For years, Justin Trudeau and Sophie Grégoire Trudeau looked like the picture-perfect political couple. They stood side by side at world events, smiled for cameras, and represented a modern, youthful image unlike anything Canada had seen before. But behind those flawless photographs and polished appearances, something far more emotional was happening. And according to people close to the family, Sophie eventually broke down in tears and admitted the real reason their marriage fell apart. A reason she had kept buried for years. Long before the public announcement, the first signs of trouble quietly surfaced behind the scenes. While Trudeau rose to global recognition as one of the world's most visible political leaders, Sophie found herself pushed into a spotlight she never asked for. Insiders say the pressure started creating cracks that were impossible to hide at home. Friends described a growing distance, not the dramatic kind you see in tabloids, but the slow, painful kind that sneaks up on a couple over time. The traveling, the scrutiny, the security, the endless responsibilities, it all began to pull them in different directions. One public, one private. People close to Sophie say she often felt isolated, even when surrounded by crowds. She loved her family deeply, but the political lifestyle came with sacrifices she never fully adapted to. She reportedly admitted in private moments that she felt like the world saw Justin Trudeau, the Prime Minister, but no longer saw her. And over the years, that feeling slowly consumed her. While cameras captured a united couple, reality captured something else entirely. Two people struggling to remain on the same path. According to sources who witnessed their quiet struggles, the emotional distance became undeniable. They were living under one roof, but with two entirely different schedules, priorities, and expectations. Justin was consumed by the demands of leadership, while Sophie pursued her own passions, wellness, mental health advocacy, and parenting. None of this was controversial or dramatic. In fact, it was painfully relatable, but it built a sense of separation so strong that even those closest to them could feel it. Sophie was said to have once admitted that she no longer recognized the life she was living, and that it didn't feel like her own anymore. The breaking point reportedly came during one of the most politically heated periods of Trudeau's leadership. Every move he made sparked headlines, controversy, or debate. And Sophie, who had never sought political fame, felt the weight of every judgment. Insiders say the stress inside their home intensified, with disagreements about privacy, independence, and raising their children under a microscope. According to a source, Sophie finally admitted she felt like she couldn't breathe, that the pressure around their family had become overwhelming, and that she was emotionally exhausted from holding everything together. What happened next is what shocked those close to them the most. In a deeply emotional moment, Sophie allegedly broke down in tears and expressed feelings she had kept buried for years. She admitted she didn't feel like herself anymore, that somewhere along the journey of supporting her husband and navigating life as the spouse of one of the world's most recognizable leaders, she had quietly lost her own identity. It wasn't anger, it wasn't scandal, it was heartbreak. The realization that love alone wasn't enough to keep her grounded in a life that no longer felt like her own. Those who witnessed the moment say it was raw, honest, and painful, and that it changed the direction of their marriage instantly. From that moment, the conversation shifted. Instead of trying to fix something that had slowly unraveled, they began facing the truth. They had grown apart. And when it came time to make their separation public, the timing was not accidental. Their children were older, public pressure was rising, and speculation was already starting to swirl. Sophie reportedly admitted that dragging the situation out would only create more noise and put their family under an even brighter spotlight. Choosing transparency, on their terms, was their final act of unity. When the announcement dropped, rumors exploded instantly. The internet filled with theories, accusations, and whispers about everything from infidelity to political scandal. But Sophie was reportedly devastated by the narratives that surfaced. She confided in friends that the rumors hurt more than people realized. She insisted that the truth was far less dramatic. There was no betrayal, no secret affair, no explosive fight. What she finally made clear was that emotional distance, changing priorities, and years of being stretched thin were the real reasons behind the separation. Not scandal, just exhaustion. Life after the separation looked very different for both of them. Sophie stepped into a quieter, more introspective chapter. She embraced wellness, spirituality, and her own creative projects. People close to her say she began to feel lighter, not because the marriage was bad, but because she rediscovered the parts of herself she had neglected for so long. Yet she still grew emotional whenever she spoke about the separation. Ending a marriage, even a peaceful one, means closing a chapter that shaped your entire adult life. And she admitted that walking away from that chapter, even for the right reasons, was one of the hardest decisions she had ever made. Through all of this, what stands out most is not drama or scandal, but humanity. Sophie's emotional confession revealed a story rarely told about public couples. Sometimes the biggest heartbreaks are quiet, gradual, and deeply personal. Sometimes the world sees a polished image, while behind the scenes, two people are simply trying to stay afloat in different oceans. And in the end, what she finally admitted in tears paints a picture of two individuals who loved each other, but were no longer walking the same path. Her honesty leaves one lingering question, a question that may never fully be answered. Did stepping away from the marriage free her, or did it break her in ways she still doesn't talk about? Only Sophie knows that truth. And this emotional revelation might only be the beginning of what really happened behind closed doors. What most people don't realize is that the separation also forced the family to renegotiate what their new normal would look like. According to those familiar with the transition, both Justin and Sophie were determined to keep the environment stable for their children. But off camera, those adjustments weren't simple. They had to navigate a new rhythm of communication, new boundaries, and a new emotional distance that took time to adjust to. Sophie reportedly admitted that even though the decision felt right, there were days she questioned whether she was strong enough to redefine her entire life at once. Another layer people rarely talk about is how much Sophie had carried silently for years. Sources claim she often felt like she had to be the emotional anchor, the calm presence behind a whirlwind of political storms. And once the separation happened, she was finally able to release that responsibility. She began speaking openly about wanting peace, healing, and autonomy. Those closest to her say she finally allowed herself to explore personal growth without worrying how it would affect someone else's career or public image. Friends also noticed a shift in the way Sophie talked about her future. For the first time in years, she was able to focus on her own ambitions, writing, advocacy, wellness, and reconnecting with passions she had set aside. There were moments when she became emotional discussing these changes, not out of regret, but out of relief. She admitted she had lived so long in service of something larger than herself that she had forgotten what it felt like to choose her own path freely. Meanwhile, Justin had his own adjustments to make. Those close to him say the separation forced him to confront the personal cost of public life in a way he never had before. He reportedly became more aware of how the pressures of leadership affected his family, and how easy it had been to lose sight of the emotional toll it placed on the people closest to him. While the two remained respectful and cooperative, there was a quiet understanding between them that their old life simply couldn't be rebuilt. One of the most emotional revelations during this period came from Sophie reflecting on the early days of their relationship. She confessed privately that she sometimes missed the simplicity of who they were before the world demanded so much from them. Not because she wanted to go back, but because it reminded her of how drastically their lives had shifted. That nostalgia, mixed with the reality of their separation, added a bittersweet layer to her healing journey. And even as she moved forward, Sophie reportedly admitted that closing the door on a marriage doesn't mean closing the door on. She still expressed deep respect for Justin as a father and as someone who shared years of her life. But respect isn't the same as connection, and connection isn't the same as compatibility. In the end, her emotional honesty made it clear that letting go wasn't about failure. It was about finally choosing a life that felt authentic. Her extended reflections reveal something rarely shown in public narratives: that the end of a relationship, especially one lived under global scrutiny, can be both heartbreaking and liberating at the same time. And for Sophie, embracing that contradiction became part of her truth. The truth she had been holding inside long before the world ever knew they were drifting apart.